Hey everyone, I'm Jo Muirhead, and this is the Entrepreneurial Clinician Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Entrepreneurial Clinician Podcast. And I always get excited when I am conducting interviews because it gives me the privilege to speak to people that I've probably never spoken to. And today is one of those interviews. We've known each other now for 30 seconds, Jake. That's a really long time. So it's exciting to be here for me today, and we're just going to see where this conversation goes. So who's Jake? Take it away, Jake. Let us know who you are.
Well, hello. Yeah, all of 30 seconds and now maybe 35 seconds. It's going great. My name is Jake Ernst. I am a therapist in Toronto, Canada, and I primarily work with young people and their families. I'm the clinical director of Straight Up Health, which is a mental health care facility for young people and families. So we work with a ton of teenagers and young adults to help them be their best, most thriving selves. And so I would say that that's a majority of my clinical practice. And I also do a lot of community and public education. So I speak on podcasts like this. I also go to conferences and speak all around the world, which is very fun. And typically when I go speaking, I talk a lot about the intersection of technology and well-being. That is something that is consuming the majority of my practice right now. I think mainly because I work with young people, but it is also just really seeping into healthcare spaces as well. And so I'm noticing that a lot of healthcare professionals have so many questions just around, what will this new era of technology look like and how will it impact our well-being? So that's what I chat about often.
Oh, excellent. It's exciting for me because I started to think that I was the only person who could see that human beings were forming attachments and relationships to technology almost akin to romantic relationships. And I'm like, how are we prepared for that to turn up in our therapy room? And then I stumbled upon your Instagram profile and saw some of the things that you were talking about. And then I heard through a colleague what you were talking about at conferences. And I went, I need Jake in my head because you've thought about it. You're seeing it every day. This for me, I think is a great conversation. So what are some of the, some of the uncomfortable truths that health professionals need to know about people and technology?
Ooh, heavy question just right off the top, hey? My goodness. I would say that here is this isn't meant to be a judgment, but I know it will come off as judgy. But I don't think that as a healthcare profession, and that is across the board, the way that we care for other people and in the helping and healing profession, I do not think that we are fully equipped to handle what is to come that is currently coming down the pipe with regards to different technologies, whether that be AI, whether that be social media, whether that just be tech companies in general. I don't think that we are equipped as a health profession to be able to handle what we are about to see.
I would agree so wholeheartedly with you because I feel ill-equipped, and I don't think it's just a generational problem anymore. And there's only going to be a limit to how many times I can say to the clinical client to come into our practice, show me what you're using it for, show me what you're doing with it. Like that question's going to get old very quickly.
Oh, you got it. And I have to say it's very fascinating. I see a ton of young people every single day, and they come into my office and they say, Jake, I don't want to be on this technology. I don't want to be on this app. I don't want to be using this social media app, but I'm hooked. I can't get off of it. And I don't know how to live a life without it. And I think that we are seeing drastic levels of addiction and screen overuse in our youngest populations. And I think, of course, that is creeping into older generations as well. And so across the board, I think the common unifier among these generations is that we are all swimming in the same waters. We're all swimming globally, right, across the world. I read a stat the other day that was talking about how Gen Z is the most globally similar generation, meaning that because of globalization and because of the internet, they are the most globally similar generation in the history of civilization. That is such a big point, right? Because when you think about
Yes.
things like the power of technology to spread disinformation and to,
Yes.
contribute to like
Yes.
rage and to contribute to just, global crisis acting in just this big sort of cloud that seems to be so predominantly held above our heads, contributing to cultures of catastrophe and negativity and, just looking at the future as pretty bleak. It's very stunning, actually. Like, it really just, it catches me off guard just how serious this is as a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the globalization and almost like the gentrification of this current generation, it first came to notice to me when I was in Malaysia. So I do not look Malaysian for anybody who can't see me right now. I am your very middle-class, white, heterosexual female. Like, I fit right in that middle category. So for me to go to Malaysia and notice cultural differences was going to be interesting. It was just most English that was spoken to us while we were in Malaysia was with a very American accent. And then when I start speaking to people in Korea, because I have audience from Korea, I have audience in Singapore, again, a very American accent. Not saying that we're all becoming American, but again, it just shows you how what's that word? Like, the dissemination it's there at every level. We can't escape it. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And it is super felt, and I think that among many of the revolutions that are occurring right now, we are in just a really big transformational technological revolution as we move from computing as a revolution to AI and intelligence as a revolution. And I think that we really don't know the impacts that's going to have on our individual well-being. I kind of just think about it in terms of nature and nurture. These are the two of the fundamental ways that we grow, the way that we develop, the way that we connect and relate. And that is, of course, nature through biology and genetics, and then nurture through relationships and being a social species. And this is the first time, I think, in at least in the past 10 years, we've started to see a third one, which is nature versus nurture versus what I call numerics, where algorithms are controlling the way that we relate and the way that we develop. When I say numerics, I, of course, am talking about ones and zeros, the codes and all the algorithms that are shaping the way we are.
Well, and it's interesting because it's already seeped into the marketing. Like, you probably get bombarded as much as I do online with marketing messages about hack this algorithm, learn how to use this algorithm. So it's like the algorithm is the beast that needs to be tamed, and we're going to tame it. So yeah, but that makes so much sense. So the ads that we see, which direct what choices we make, the conversations that we're having, which are all starting to be controlled by these ones and zeros. I really appreciate you putting words to something I haven't been able to articulate. So this is why you're here, Jake, because you need to help us understand this, because we're all swimming around going, I know there's an addiction going on over there. My normal addiction therapy processes don't seem to be working. And then what we do as health professionals is we start to question our competence.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, how could we not, right? Especially when it's so new, it catches us off guard. And we're also sort of in the space of having to have answers and having to have solutions and having to be the sort of voice that coaches or helps people forward. And, it's a really difficult practice to do that when we feel like we are also ourselves unequipped to do that, or we are also, of course, also at the hands of these algorithms and apps and tech companies in general also.
Yeah.
Hard spot to be in.
It is a really hard spot to be in. It's like we got a little bit of a taste of it through the pandemic, when it was like, well, I have no clue how to deal with this either. So I'm just going to keep turning up and doing what I think I know I need to do. Hopefully there'll be some time and some space in my world to help me process it, which I can assure you didn't happen for health professionals. But we've just moved into this brand new space without really any respite in between to catch up with ourselves. It's like, got it. Yeah. No wonder health professionals are leaving the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what that immediately sort of makes me think about is just how the systems in general are not built / equipped to handle just the strength of what is happening right now.
Yeah.
You know, we are just in such an archaic time as it bumps up against the development that's happening right now. And I think about just how internally, how our immune system, for example, if that's the system that we have in operation, when a virus comes in, the virus can move like so much faster than the immune system can keep up with. And that's the reason why we get sick, right? It can't process it at the same rate that it's occurring and developing, evolving. And that's what's happening right now, is that our internal immune system, as replicated in our, you know, outside immune system, is just like, it's just not built to be able to tolerate the amount of incoming stress and stressors that we're faced with.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a lot. And it's kind of almost irresponsible or impossible just to say, stop using technology, right? Because I can't stop using technology. I live in a world where I just can't. Do you often have parents saying, I just want my kid to stop using technology?
You know what? Every single day I'm having this conversation, and it's a reinvention of the same conversation in different ways. But yes, I do have a lot of people saying this. And at the same time, this is the only treatment that I personally have seen be effective for kids who are severely impacted by screens. I have so many clients who I've just seen so successful in the category of, I shut off my screens, I put it away, I went cold turkey, and I no longer use them. And those are the kids who a self just starts to emerge that this wasn't there before. And so, you know, I think, yes, I think you were right. We are swimming in it, and it has become culture, and it is a part of who we are. And in fact, I think it has also become a separate body part in a way, our phones. And so I think that this is the recommendation by a lot of parents. And clinically, this is also my recommendation if kids can do it. But, you know, I think that I think of the both and, right? Where parents are wanting it and asking for it. I think they need help realistically because they can't do it on their own. And then I look at myself and my own behavior outside of that room. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to stop. Like, it, you know, this is what it is. This is what it is now. And so you're right. It's not going away. However, clinically, you know, from a mental health treatment perspective, for the kids who are really attached, we need to attach them to something else. And that's really the thing that's going to help.
Yeah, because we don't ask children under 5 to manage crossing the road by themselves, right? We just know developmentally they don't have the skills, the capability, the body awareness, the spatial perception to be able to do that. They're like, ball, go, now, whoops, car. Like, so we have a responsibility to help our young people better manage, better regulate, understand what some of these boundaries are. I have a 23-year-old son. He is awesome at putting away his technology. He just goes, I just don't want to see it, don't want to deal with it. If you need to contact me, you won't be able to do it for the next couple of hours, you know, which is, as a mother, freaks me out completely.
Right.
But he's great. He's great at it. But that was born out of getting lots and lots of stressful messages from his workplace.
No kidding, right? And so suddenly boundaries become so essential to our well-being and to our thriving as we are operating in this digital space. It is becoming essential. It's becoming so necessary and important for us to be able to figure out, like, what is our language for communication if this is going to be a part of our lives. And so it has completely shifted and reshifted a ton of our practices and has reset our norms. I would say that on the whole, I'm seeing that as being a huge impact on kids these days, is that algorithms are becoming the new norms, right? They're resetting the socialization process, and they're resetting how kids relate to each other. And so when all of that is determined not from social relationships and the way we connect, but rather from an algorithm, that is dangerous. That is scary, scary times.
Well, yes, because who's telling the algorithm what to do? Like, where's that coming from? And now we already know from information that's being shared with us that some of these algorithms developed their own ability to work out what to say next without anybody telling them, which is, you know, we technology has given us some incredible things, like you and I can do this right now. But, you know, maybe some of the Simpsons episodes are starting to come true.
Oh, for sure. I think in the next few years, like, the impacts are going to be, we are going to see them plain as day. And my prediction is that social media litigation is going to become the next tobacco litigation. I think that in order for us to see these changes at the social media and technology company level, that the harms are going to have to be very clearly identified through litigation, which is a very unfortunate and stark reality. But I think that there's going to have to be litigation processes in order for us to see the change that we wish to see.
Yeah, it's that whole behavioral model, isn't it? It's like until somebody feels the negative consequences, they won't change. Oh, humans, we like to think we're so sophisticated.
It's so true, right? And and I guess the sad reality there is that I think the impacts and consequences of social media litigation are pretty serious, right? Like we're talking about like people severely harming themselves or killing themselves in order to really send this bigger message, right? And we're actually seeing a ton of school boards across the United States and Canada changing their phone policies, even changing like whether or not they will allow like TikTok, for example, on their Wi-Fi networks in their campuses or in their schools. And so in many ways, I think that's really good, but I don't think that's enough. I don't think that will be enough to change it. I would love to see age gating. I would love to see putting an age in place with identity verification, one user, one account, in order to sign up for social media.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And more rigorous ways of getting around the rules, because these young people are really smart. They know how to get in back doors that I didn't even know existed. Okay, because they're just incredibly clever. Yeah,
that's it. And the way that I talk to parents about this, I sort of say, like, when you give your child a smartphone at a young age, and especially in middle school, you're giving them a free plane ticket all around the world. They can travel wherever they want. And you would never give them a physical plane ticket. You never allow them to travel all by themselves all around the world. So why are we just giving kids smartphones and saying, okay, have at her, manage yourselves? And, I just think that one of the most dangerous things we can do for young people, especially in middle school, is hand a young girl a smartphone.
Oh God, yes.
One
Sorry.
that has one that has a front-facing camera to allow them to take pictures of themselves, to post on social media so that people can like and evaluate and comment and rate it. That doesn't make any logical sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It horrifies me. I watch particularly Instagram, and even I, as a woman in her 50s who's been a health professional for 30 years, I can still succumb to the whole, like, just using body image for an example. It's like, oh crap, I got to go on another diet. And it's like, where did that come from? Like, I may not have even engaged with anything today, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's winter, I'm going to put on weight. Oh my God, summer. Oh, it's so hard to lose weight. I better start doing that now. Restrictive eating, go change, and my whole demeanor changes. So that's me as somebody with some social emotional intelligence, quite a lot of self-awareness, who went to therapy for years and years and years and years. I can't imagine what that's doing for an 11-year-old.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what happens, is it brings us all back to middle school.
Yeah.
That's what social media is designed to do. It's meant to exploit our belonging parts, right? The parts of us that like really need to be part of the group and would in fact really hate to be socially rejected and to not fit in. And so it brings us all back to that really primitive part of ourselves. And it becomes what has been referred to as a race to the bottom of the brainstem, which is like, how can we exploit the human brain and its really innate human needs as much as possible? And it turns out that social need is just on fire at that age, right? And at that stage where we just need to fit in and we need to belong. So it brings us all back to middle school, I fear. Yeah,
that's actually incredibly insightful. And I've just gone, oh, now I know the conversations I need to have with that person, and that person who I know not in middle school. They're well into adulthood, but I'm like, the race to the bottom of the brainstem, possibly one of the most poignant comments we're going to hear in a long time. So you have quite a strong following, particularly on Instagram, because I don't do TikTok, so I wouldn't know. What made you go, all right, I need to contribute to this landscape?
Oh, I love this question. First, let me just say and clarify, I am not on TikTok and I am happily not on TikTok.
Okay.
I have heard that it's anywhere from 12 to 15 times more powerful. Its algorithm is 12
Mm-hmm.
to 15 times more powerful. And I really can't do it. My nervous
Mm-hmm.
system can't handle it. And in fact, I think that algorithms, that's actually how they're designed, is they're actually meant to be our nervous system and they replace our nervous system. And so what it does, it actually regulates, the rewards, and it regulates like what we meant to feel, all that kind of stuff. And so I have said no to TikTok. Let me just start there. But I do feel strongly that I think we as health professionals should be participating in the conversation
Mm.
from the standpoint of having correct information and
Yes.
not contributing to the spread of disinformation. I There was a study that was done this past summer in North America, and it found that 9% of creators on TikTok were
Mm-hmm.
qualified health professionals who were
9.
sharing 9% who were sharing health information slash guidance slash advice were credentialed and licensed health professionals. 9%.
Yes, and
That
I'm. That's why my jaw has dropped to the ground.
that
Um,
is alarming to me. And so
that's
that
terrifying.
that is
Yeah.
something that I back in 2018, I remember when I first started writing more professionally, speaking more professionally, and then also just doing a lot more like posting on Instagram. I noticed other people sharing little tidbits as I was kind of scrolling through
Mm,
my personal page. And I was kind of like, well, no, that's not
mm,
right. Or like, I
mm,
don't know if that's actually the full story. Or wait, why aren't you actually explaining that this is all context dependent? Wait, why aren't you
mm,
explaining that like this isn't the truth for everybody? This may just be your experience. And
mm.
so I felt really strongly to show up to the conversation, and I wanted to show up as my professional self for that very reason. And that's also why I don't just show up as my person, as
Mhm,
that's why I attach my profession to it, because
mm.
I just feel really strongly about not contributing to the disinformation.
Absolutely. And we've got so many health professionals who want to critique and get angry at the disinformation that's going on. But if 9% of creators, if that's all that we are contributing to, then we've got a responsibility here,
We
right?
sure do. It's becoming a new part of our work, right? And I sort
Yes.
of put this into the category of community education. I
Mm-hmm.
look at it no differently than like me going to a school and speaking to a group of parents, right? If I'm hopping on Instagram and sharing information about psychology, mental health, well-being, I look at that as an extension of the
Mm.
psychoeducation that I do in my work and the community education that I do every single day.
Yeah. And the way you do it on Instagram is so I think that what happens for a lot of health professionals is they they don't realize that they have to get it to the 11-year-old level for
Hmm.
for the rest of the population to understand
Hmm.
it. But your explanations, you use up the space that's available to you on Instagram, and you actually take one thought and you take it right through to the end. So it's like, this is what's going on when you have an attachment-based fear. It's not just attachment, the savior. Once you learn about attachment, everything will be fine. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's understand the context, the application, and the results. So it is very educative, but it's not slamming it in my face with 1,000 statistics. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I mean, the funniest part about what you just said is that I really just write with my mom in mind. I'm just kind of like, who's my audience and who am I
Yes.
writing for? Like, would my mom understand this?
Yeah.
And, I come from a small town. I'm, very small town school, in high school. And so just a very simple kind of family situation, very small town mindset, and also very small town in its application of these types of tools. And so that's who I'm writing for. Like, I have
Mm-hmm.
no business writing for the people in the ivory towers and in academia. And I also know that I'm not writing for doctors, right? Because they
Mm.
likely know a lot of this information. And so I
Mm.
feel strongly about, if I can make my work as accessible as possible, then I can sort of check a lot of boxes in terms of, the misinformation and disinformation stuff. And then also like kind of hit my points, right? To be able to contribute to my overall goal. which is to, provide language and accessibility for more conversations about emotional well-being.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up accessibility, because there's two words that I use to describe what I see. One is you make mental health accessible. You're talking about it in a way that people can understand. You make people want to go, I want to know more about that. But then you also normalize the fact that we don't know about this. So you don't shame anybody, you don't ridicule anybody, you don't call out other content creators. You just go, this is what this does to our nervous system. This is what's going on over here after you've had a really difficult experience with someone. You just normalize it. So when I read that, I'm hoping that there are now some kids who are starting to use really horrible language like, I'd like to be unalive tomorrow, which I still struggle with, and go, oh, hang on a minute. This guy's actually saying that's a normal thing for me to feel. I don't need to act on that.
Totally.
That's that accessibility and normalizing component to what you bring, I find encouraging, and it kind of makes me feel like, okay, there is some hope in the world. So that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that part of the part of people I'm also speaking to is that really curious observer who's like, I really kind of want to know more information, but I don't maybe need therapy. I don't necessarily need to sort of go into my childhood. I don't need to kind of pull back the curtain on my entire life, but I kind of just want to learn a bit more passively as I kind of go. And so I liken it a little bit. It's closer to, the self-help section of a bookstore than it actually is to therapy itself. And I think that's important to really name, which is that this is just another self-help kind of reinvention and another self-help genre. It's not a replacement for therapy. And this is in fact not mental health care in its sense.
Yeah. And you're very, very clear about that. It's like you've got your disclaimer written, you've got it down.
I do.
Fantastic. Well, if you are convinced that social media litigation is going to be the next revolution that we experience, we can already see that you're protecting yourself against that, because you're taking seriously your responsibility for the information that you provide. Yeah.
Thank you. It feels really good to be seen by you, Jo. I think that's something I feel very strongly about, is just holding those ethics so clear and so strongly. And, unfortunately, as are many people, I'm not immune to the feedback. I'm not immune to the harsh criticism. I'm not immune to the algorithm getting a hold of my comment section and completely misinterpreting the point of what I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And my DMs are also flooded with people, again, completely missing what I'm doing there. So, I take it all with a grain of salt, and I have to set a ton of boundaries around my pages and my profiles.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's just a healthy behavior. It's like, I think when we can stand with incredible integrity, I know I am doing the right thing for the right reasons, based on what my values and what I know to be the truth about this space in time, then we can set those boundaries, because we're not having to apologize for ourselves or prove ourselves good enough. It's like, dude, if you don't like it, please hit block.
That's it. And, I do welcome people to practice that level of discernment. And I think that, to go back to our earlier conversation, that is what I think is being lost, is that we are unable to see nuance. We are unable to practice that discernment to say, wait, is this for me? Is this post about me? Or can I leave it and swipe on through and swipe on past? But, I think that this is becoming sort of this generation of hot takes. And I feel like I just have to dunk on people. I have to say my piece and give my perspective. I have to overshare. I have to just, all of this social media type stuff that is that's a bit brand new, but also really complicated to deal with, right, at the individual level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
complex.
It is. Yes, it's not just about trying to teach my grandma how to use her smartphone. It's a lot more complicated than that. Wow. What would you, how could we, I'm trying not to put shoulds, how could we, as ethical, professional, educated people with integrity, address or participate in the conversation around misinformation?
The first place I think to start is to get really clear, just because I think language is so important. get really clear on the difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Ah, nice.
What is happening right now is disinformation. We need to get really clear on using the correct language. So misinformation is like broken telephone, right? It's like a oopsie. It's like, oh, I got that wrong.
Mm.
Disinformation is where, and this is how algorithms are taking a hold. Disinformation is when there is factually incorrect information floating around the algorithms, floating around the internet, and then it is being consumed and taken up as fact and as correct information. And so, as the health practitioners, we are the providers of correct, scientifically backed information. And when, whether it be tech companies, whether it be algorithms, whether it be, of course, bad actors who are, sharing their own sort of agenda, or conspiracy people who are pushing their own sets of knowledges and beliefs, we need to get really clear on what is happening here. Overall, we're talking about misleading information used intentionally to misdirect people and miseducate people through the lens of disinformation. And I think that what we're seeing right now is a really stark difficulty in our ability to discern, like, wait, is that real? Wait, did that actually happen? Here's an example. I'm working with this young person, and he had came into my office, and this is around just after the pandemic, but just before we kind of like sort of globally kind of really felt that we are a little bit more out of it. And he came into my office and he said, "Did you know World War III is happening?" And I said, "Where did you hear that?" What do you mean? I mean, he's like, not to pull the alarm, but like World War III is happening. And I, corrected him. I said, I don't think that's true. Just because I felt really strongly about, the geopolitical kind of impacts of a World War III situation. I said, I don't know if that's true. Where did you hear that? And he's like, "Oh, it's on TikTok. Like, it's all over TikTok." And I said, "Well, do you know the source of that information? Like, where, cite yourself, basically." And he had no sources. He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I just heard it. I just heard it." And it sort of just, and again, for me, that's beyond broken telephone. That's beyond like, oh, someone said. It's like, well, no, they're actually, in order for that to take off online, that had to have taken a hold from somewhere. And so that is a clear example of the disinformation that is out there, clearly factually incorrect, and could also be a whoopsie. But I don't think that, 3 million likes and 4 million shares, whatever, that's not an accident, right? That is people sharing this information to spread some sort of agenda. And so I think your question is a good one, just around like, well, what can we do? And I think as it pertains to us, is number one, I feel strongly about just sharing correct information. I think that's something that we can just do. And anywhere where we can cite sources, and anywhere we can sort of, anywhere we can kind of back our work up, I think is important. Then I think second is to also participate in that conversation around like, well, wait, where did you get that? Or like, is that actually true? How do you know that? Like, where does that come from? I think asking those questions is really good, especially for young people, and helping them also see that like not everything you see on the internet is true.
Yeah. Yeah. And that must be such a difficult thing for young people, because I'm older than the internet. Like I actually remember before it was a thing. I was at university when we didn't use it. I actually hand wrote assignments for the first 2 years. Like but there are generations of people who have not experienced that. It's just
Truly.
It's just their life. So it must be to actually realize they need to think critically about what they see on the internet. Must be such a, like, their mind must just go, wait, what now? Like, you want
Absolutely.
me to do what? I've just trusted this thing.
Absolutely. It is becoming way too easy for us to either look the other way, or for us to just like spew or spout like whatever we heard, right? And just to kind of repeat. And I think that is another just important aspect of this is that I do believe in people. I think that we are all designed, well, and I think that think there's good in all people. However, I just really worry about how it's changing us, and I think the differences are just really hard to ignore.
Yeah, this is so we didn't know where this conversation was going to go today, and look where it's gone. There's incredible education and insight, and almost not just a call to action, people, a call to arms. And we are armed with good information, quality information. We are armed with knowledge around human behavior that we can apply to this thing that feels like it's running away. Well, sometimes it feels like it's running away without me. So I really appreciate this conversation, Jake. Thank you so much for being so willing to go there so quickly for somebody that you knew for 30 seconds when you started today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're not done yet, because you're actually going to be participating in the Symposium come September, which I'm thrilled about. So thank you again for saying yes before you had a clue what that was about. Do you want to just give us a little bit of insight into what you would like to share during the Symposium?
Yes, I'm going to be talking about the intersection of technology and well-being, and specifically how that has changed over the past 10 years. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. We can actually trace the rise in mental health issues among young people all the way back to the beginning of the internet. And then as soon as the adoption of smartphone technology and the development of photo sharing apps. So I'm excited to talk just about how exactly that happened, and talk a little bit about some of the history with the technology side, and then give my predictions around what I think is going to happen for the future of our profession and how that is changing digital healthcare and the profession in general.
Beautiful. So quite genuinely, you have caught the spirit of future-proofing health professionals. So thank you so much for that, because I'm still educating on what that even means. So that's really cool.
Totally. Ooh. And just as a little last note there, I'm also going to be talking a lot about Web3 and how this will sort of change with, like things like Vision Pro by Apple, and, how, just how therapy and healthcare settings, I think, are going to start to use technology in the positive ways, and then in potentially some harmful ways that we should watch out for.
Absolutely. But the wonderful thing we've learned about you today, Jake, is you don't just leave us with a sick feeling in our stomach. You give us some tools and some creative ways to start thinking about moving forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I maybe lastly, what I'll sort of say is that I really do think that in this moment, at this particular time right now, it is on us as healthcare professionals to be the bringers of hope. I think that we have a moral obligation to be the bringers of hope. And I think that we are the people that do this work because we love this work, because we're good at it, and because we are helpers and healers at heart. And I think that it is on us to be the bringers of hope when it doesn't feel very hopeful and things feel quite hopeless. So that's what I leave us with. And I think we can do it. I'm optimistic. I think we'll be okay. And I'm rooting for all of us. And I hope we all make it.
Well, I share that enthusiasm with you, because I do what I do for exactly the same reason. It's like that we can do this. That the world actually expects us to be able to do this. They're looking to us for the leadership, and they're looking to us for the guidance. So it's kind of our time to shine.
We're built for it. We can do this.
Yeah. So the very last question I have for you today, which is possibly my most important question for me. If you and I were to meet in a physical place, maybe, in Canada somewhere, and we were going to go to a cafe, what type of coffee would you order?
Oh, I am like black coffee all day. Absolutely. I am. You're just that like simple. Your steady drip black coffee. Give me, probably a large to an extra large, and I will be golden. I will be good.
Okay, I like that. That's just nice and easy. I'll probably get that order wrong because it's so simple.
I mean, it also may be because of, my lactose intolerance that I don't venture into the other areas, but that
fair enough. Fair enough.
Straight black coffee.
How can people find if they're going, I really need to get to know this gentleman? Where do they need to go? How do they find you?
You can find me posting, surfing, having fun, and just doing awesome therapy things on the internet at MSW Jake. I post primarily on Instagram, but lately I've been really enjoying two other platforms that I think are not getting their time of day. Number one is Facebook. Facebook is declining in the ratings, but I think that it is winning right now. It is a very fun place to be. So you can follow me on Facebook. And the second is my new favorite up and coming platform called Substack. It is where I write my weekly newsletters, and everything that we're kind of talking about today, I do a little bit of a deeper dive on my Substack, longer form writing. So you can just Google MSW Jake Substack, and that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, I've just learned a new word today, Substack. So look at that, always educating. Jake, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for giving up your time and your expertise and being so willing to share with us. So everybody who's been listening today, go find Jake, get ready to join the Future Proofing Health Professionals Symposium come September, and we look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
Thank you so much, Joe. Congrats on all your success. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Hey, Joe Muirhead here again. Thank you for watching this episode of The Entrepreneurial Clinician. It has been great to share guests, new information, and new ways of thinking with you. I trust that this episode today has inspired you and has helped you to reconnect to your sense of purpose as a health professional and a clinician. Before we move on, just want to remind you that these sessions, these episodes, are provided for educational purposes only. Nothing in these episodes is designed to be treatment specific or a specific recommendation about your health, your wellness, or your finances for your situation specifically. If you need assistance in any of these areas, please reach out to an appropriate professional for you to be able to access the help that you need. If you have enjoyed these episodes and would like to see more, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and make sure you leave me a comment below. And I look forward to bringing you more great, inspiring stories where I get to learn just as much as you do. Until next time, go be your awesome self.